Now this is the face-off I have been waiting for quite a while. Tarte Shape Tape Original versus Tarte Shape Tape Ultra Creamy. I have been using the original Shape Tape for years. I use shade Light Neutral, also 22N if you use me as a shade reference. And I'm one of those strange people who has dry skin around the eyes, but I find this works quite well for me because I don't really go on with a lot of product. I moisturize and I prep my skin quite well, and then I do just a small swipe where I need it. I try not to load my face down with too much of this, but I do know several people who find this a little too matte, a little bit too drying, or a little harder to blend for dry skin around the eyes. So when they announced the Ultra Creamy formula, I think a lot of people were excited because who doesn't want this amount of coverage, but in a slightly more hydrating, creamier, easier to blend texture that's not going to emphasize dryness and lines around the eyes. I do have a little card here comparing the two formulas, and across the board they're supposed to be full coverage, crease proof, and long wearing. Now original Shape Tape is a cult classic. It has a natural matte finish and it's more designed or suited for normal to oilier skins. Now the Ultra Creamy on the other hand has what they call a moisturizing matte finish. I'm not sure what that means. I'm guessing it just means demi-matte, and it's more moisturizing because, they claim that they have an eye cream built into the formula, so it is also more suited for dry skins and mature skins. Now both are priced the same at $42 Sing, and you get 10 milliliters of product. The components also look really similar, so you do want to take note that the Ultra Creamy obviously has the lettering on the front, and the cap is a paler lavender instead of the original gold and purple. You'll also see that the top is not a metallic gold, it is a purple all the way. Now for all intents and purposes, I should like the Ultra Creamy formula way more than the original, but we're going to put them both to the test, one on each side of my face, and then we'll check in at the end of the day to see whether one of these performs better than the other on my slightly drier skin. Now do notice that I like to let the concealer sit a little bit on the areas where I want the most coverage. This allows it to set and lock down, so it leaves the most coverage. And I also recommend using a tapping motion either with a blender sponge or your fingertip to leave most of the product on in the areas where you want the most camouflaging. Immediate impressions before the powder goes on. The Ultra Creamy formula does seem to have the same consistency when you're applying it, but it shears out a lot easier. So if you want to use something to highlight and you want it to blend very seamlessly into your foundations or other concealers, I think the Ultra Creamy is a pretty good option. Now the negative to that is I had to build up a little bit more coverage on this side of my face. Right now I don't feel too much of a difference in terms of how drying or moisturizing these are, but then I really prepped my skin with quite a bit of moisturizer earlier on, so I think it's going to take me a few hours to see how dry or how creamy each of these formulas is. That's it. I'm going to do a crinkle wrinkle test. I'm going to scrunch my face up and we'll see how both of these perform before the setting powder goes on. because both of these are supposed to be self-setting formulas. Even without the powder going on, they should do a pretty decent job of hanging onto your skin without moving everywhere. Now, I'm not sure how visible it is on camera, but I do see a little bit more settling into the fold right here on the Ultra Creamy side. On the original Shape Tape side, it hasn't really creased in the fold here, but I'm getting a little bit more crinkling around the drier portions of my eye where it's sort of settled into or grabbed onto some of the drier parts of the skin as you squeeze and make expressions. So besides the fact that the Ultra Creamy side took a little longer to dry down, and you want to take note of that because while it's still setting, you don't want to do too many expressions because you could make it set with creases in it. I don't see too much of a difference in terms of the crease resistance of either of these products before setting powder. So the powder I'm using today is Tarte's Shape Tape Setting Powder. I love this thing. I think it's really, really ultra fine. It doesn't really look cakey, overly matte, overly heavy. And the other reason I'm using it is because, can you see, I am right down to here. This is one of those setting powders I really, really use all the time. I'm going to use a velour puff to really pick up just a minimal amount of powder and then press it into the concealers. As I said, this is a slightly creamier feeling powder which takes away the appearance of shine and pores but doesn't leave a very heavy powdered look on the skin. So that's it. I'm gonna head off now, let these sit for a few hours. At the end of the evening, I'm gonna check back in, let you guys see again if anything's broken down, if either of these has gathered or is caking up under the eyes, and I'll see you guys later. Right, it is now 5 p.m. I have been wearing these concealers for over 6 hours, about 6.5 at this point, so I'm going to take a closer look. Obviously, I'm a little shiny right now from sebum and sweat that's come out through the day. There is some fading right around the inner corners here. This is the usual spot where my eyes are dry and things just wear off after a few hours, so I don't see too much of a difference between the two formulas. I do feel that on the side where I'm using the Ultra Creamy, there is a little bit more settling into the creases and folds under the eyes throughout the day. On the original Shape Tape side, there is a teeny tiny bit, but not as much compared to the Ultra Creamy side. I don't know, maybe this was a bad test, but I don't really see too much of a difference between both sides at the end of the day. Coverage and the level of fading is about the same. Obviously, the original side is just a tiny bit drier feeling than the Ultra Creamy, but not significantly so, especially if you do use a good eye cream or face cream before you go onto your makeup in the morning. I definitely appreciate that this comes with more skincare and more hydration, generally speaking, but I still love how quick it is to just blot out any discolorations and darkness around the eyes with just a small swipe of the original Shape Tape formula. At this point, I would say any difference in performance is quite marginal. It's not a huge amount of difference, not to me anyway. Of course, if you have a different experience with these two, please let me know. But generally speaking, I found this required a little bit more building to get the same amount of coverage as this, and it's also slightly more crease prone at the start of the day, and I would imagine if you are very oily or very sweaty, that this would break down quicker as well. So overall, I do like the new Ultra Creamy formula. I will definitely use it up, but I'm not too sure that I see a need to repurchase this after it's gone, because this still works fine for me. It's a bit quicker to get the coverage on in the morning, and it lasts pretty well and is slightly more crease resistant than the new formula as well. And that's it. It's just my 2 cents based on my experience with these two worn side by side on the same day, same skin condition and all that. And you know, if you really have a very different experience with either of these, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.